Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory nikke video, and it's time to take a look at the kits of both Phantom and our new version of Quency and see if they are good or if they're just eye candy. We're going to start off with Phantom here, and clearly isn't quite as curvy, we'll say, as Quency, but a pretty cool design, to be honest. I think it's pretty cool, especially her reload animation where she like pulls the magazine out of thin air. She's got like a magician-esque kind of vibe to her. It's a lot of fun, but we're not talking about design. Let's see what her kit does. So she is a burst 3 water type attacker. We don't have a lot of those, so already looking pretty good. And she is from Elysian. So let's take a look at the actual skills. Skill 1 is called Thief's Calling Card. Activates when hitting a Rapture with a normal attack if the Rapture is not in calling card status. Affects the target, gives it calling card status, defense goes down by 32% for 5 seconds. Pretty bad. Reducing an enemy's defense by 32% is just like not that great. What else does it do? Activates when hitting a Rapture with a normal attack if the Rapture is not in calling card status. Okay, so the second effect of the same kind of thing, affects self. Thief's Dagger, hit rate goes up by 25% and stacks up to 3 times and lasts for 5 seconds. That's pretty good because ARs do need some help with hit rate, and that's going to stack 3 times, giving her 75% hit rate. So pretty good second effect there. And then the third effect of this skill is if it is already in calling card status, affects herself, attack damage goes up 75%. That is massive. That is really good, but it only lasts for 1 round. So this isn't going to go off, like all the time, but definitely a good buff. Overall, I would say this is a pretty good skill. Like I said, the first part with the defense down is kind of like not that great. The hit rate could be pretty relevant. And then like periodically dealing 75% of attack damage or dealing 75% more attack damage is quite significant. So pretty good skill there. Skill 2 is another passive called Thief's Vision. Activates when Thief's Dagger is fully stacked. Affects the target in calling card status after the stacks are removed. So when the enemy is under calling card status, you deal your 1 hit of more attack damage, and then this will happen. Deals 84% of final attack as additional damage. Calling card status is removed after the target's effect is triggered. So we're also nuking it for 84% of final attack as additional damage. That's pretty good. Like this is a pretty big 1-2 punch with the attack damage buff and then dealing final attack damage. So another pretty strong effect. And then it says activates when Thief's Dagger fully stacked. Affects self after the stacks are removed. Distributed damage goes up by 12% continuously and stacks up to 3 times. Stacks are removed after burst skill is cast. Okay. So we'll talk about what the actual burst skill does, but increasing continuous damage, okay, or distributed damage rather, and then activates after landing 10 normal attacks, affects self, attack goes up by 85% for 5 seconds, and distributed damage again goes up by 32% for 10 seconds. Okay, so why do we care about distributed damage? It's all in her burst. So 40-second cooldown, of course, affects all enemies, deals 57% rather, of final attack as distributed damage. Okay, so she's going to do almost 1,500% of final attack as damage to the whole field, but it is distributed damage. So remember, distributed damage is just like Dorothy and a few other units do this, where the damage is divided amongst X amount of targets. So it can end up being like reduced quite a bit if there's a lot of targets on the field, but of course if it's just one boss, it's distributed by 1, and so you just nuke that whole like damage on 1 boss, right? So it can be pretty good against mobs and bosses. It just gets a little worse when there's like a ton of ads on the screen. But yeah, so pretty good, and it's getting buffed by the skill 2. It's going to be hard to know exactly without testing, but I want to say she does look pretty strong, and we are short on water type attackers. I don't see any like specific team that she's gonna go on. I mean, we could do like an E-leg team, right? There was always like theoretical shenanigans with her, and she had like a brief time where she was kind of used, but it's been a long time since I've seen a serious E-leg team. So maybe, I don't know, we'll see, or maybe we just like don't lean into that and we just use her as is. But I could see her being a pretty good option to pull for. But let's take a look at Quency. I think that's the one that I am personally more excited for. Quency was my favorite character of the original Liberation units too. Also, I did this last time I recorded a video. We'll get rid of the little chat box in the upper right because I'm not streaming right now. I don't need chat on screen. Okay. Anyway, so Quency, Escape Queen. Let's go ahead and take a look at her skills. Okay, so before we actually look at the skills, she is also a burst 3 water type attacker, but from Missilus. So we're gonna get a very direct comparison here, like which is the better burst 3 water attacker. Skill 1 activates only when Explore Route stage is fully stacked. Okay. Distributed damage. So we're also getting the distributed damage here, which is also similar. So very similar units here so far. Distributed damage goes up by 49% continuously, and then activates only when Explore Route Stage 2 is fully stacked, affects self. Damage dealt when attacking core goes up 25% continuously, and then activates only when Explorer Route Stage 3 is fully stacked, affects self. Critical rate goes up by 16%. Okay, so where does this Explorer stuff come from? Well, it's all from her skill 2. So basically, skill 1 doesn't really do anything on its own. I don't really know why they designed some units like this. Like, essentially, she doesn't have a skill 1. They could have just put skill 1 all as additional effects into skill 2. Of course, it would turn into kind of a wall of text, but anyway, I don't know. It just feels like they're not really using all the design space they have, and they're just kind of like breaking up one skill. But anyway, the point is she does have a lot of effects. So skill 2 says activates after landing 2 normal attacks, which is going to happen like instantaneously. So I don't know if I pointed this out already. She is a submachine gun, okay? So extremely rapid firing, although usually hits like a pea shooter. You know, submachine guns are widely considered to be probably the worst weapon type in the game, so she's going to need some good skills to make up for that. Anyway, activates after landing 2 normal attacks. It's going to happen like as soon as you pull the trigger. Each effect phase varies, and previous effects trigger repeatedly, okay? So we kind of seen this, like the classic example is with Dola. She has the effects change after each time it activates, but it also activates the previous effect. So first time you get the first effect, second time you get the first and the second effect, and then the third time you get the first, second, and third effect. All right, so stage 1, hit rate goes up by 1.3%, stacks up to 10 times, and lasts for 2 seconds. Attack goes up by 2.4% and stacks up to 10 times and lasts for 2 seconds. Okay, so she's going to get over 20% attack buff and over 10% hit rate buff. And yes, those stacks don't last very long, but again, keep in mind the rate of fire is really, really high, so it's not going to be a problem. And then it's going to trigger that first stage 1 effect of her skill 1, which is that distributed damage. And then Stage 2 activates when Explore Route Stage 1 is fully stacked. So when you hit max stacks of Stage 1, you automatically go to Stage 2. And we have the same effects, hit rate and attack up, but this time hit rate goes up by 2.7% and attack goes up by 4.9%. And again, they both stack 10 times. So we're getting a really big attack buff here, almost 50% attack buff. Only lasts for 1 second though, but keep in mind it is stacking. And then hit rate is going up by, I don't know, 27-ish%, something like that. And then stage 3 activates when Explorer Stage 2 is fully stacked. Oh, also, keep in mind Stage 1, or rather Skill 1, Stage 2 also gets triggered at that point, which is damage goes up when attacking the core, which would be kind of bad for submachine guns normally, but she just got an enormous hit rate buff. So keep that in mind. You're actually going to probably be able to hit cores pretty well with all those hit break stacks. Of course, we'll test it out, see if that really works in practice. Anyway, stage 3 activates when Explore Route stage 2 is fully stacked. So when stage 2 reaches full stacks, you automatically go to stage 3. Affect self. Hit rate now goes up by 4%, but only stacks 5 times and lasts for only half a second. An attack goes up by a very significant 7.3% and stacks 5 times, but again, only lasts for half a second. And then you're going to have to start over on stage 1, and you'll like keep going through those cycles over and over and over. This does seem like this could be pretty good. It could definitely snowball quite a bit. I will say you're really relying on continuous fire. So, you know, reloading is really going to mess you up. If the enemy jumps, I just made up words, it's my own language. If the enemy jumps off the screen, that could also mess up your stacks. If you're forced to take cover, that could mess up your stacks. So because you're really relying on like these very short buffs that need to stack up like 10 times, it's going to be very easy to disrupt this. But if you can keep this going, I think this could be very, very good. So it kind of depends on the boss that you're fighting, because not all bosses actually move around that much. And if you give her more ammo or potentially a really, really fast reload buff, this could get pretty crazy. And then her burst skill, of course, has 40-second cooldown, and it says affect self, attack damage goes up by 57% for 10 seconds. That's really nice. Attack damage, so just always going to deal 57% more damage for 10 seconds, and reload speed goes up by 25% for 10 seconds. So she comes with her own reload speed buff. That's really nice. She might still get paired with Privity, which would synergize well if you're fighting something that you want to like have a water damage advantage for. Also, it could synergize with Privity, who's also a very strong water unit, and you're kind of leaning into that last bullet fast reload kind of team potentially. And then also says affects all enemies, deals 1,736% of final attack as distributed damage. Okay, so this is even a bigger distributed damage than Phantom had, but very similar, and it's dealing distributed damage, just like Phantom did. So the more enemies on the screen, the less damage each of those individual enemies will take, but if you only have one target, it's going to take all that damage. Okay, so really interesting that these are actually extremely similar units that are both Burst 3 water attackers, and they both have distributed damage effects. It's kind of interesting that they're so similar like this. Now, I think that both of them could be very valuable just based on the fact that they're a Burst 3 water attacker. Because, although I would love to keep staring at Quency, let's go back here for a second. And let's just filter this. Let's do by water. What do we have for water? Dorothy. Dorothy is really, really strong. I think I might have called Dorothy Privity a couple times in this video. I don't know why I keep doing that. And then, of course, you do have Privity. And then you have Winterlude Milla, which is definitely our strongest water type attacker. Then you also have Amelia and Rem. Now, Rem is very strong, which is a support. Bunny Alice, decent, but again, she's a support. Tuve is doing her own thing with the shotgun team, and then Helm is kind of a, more, occasionally you see her as like another kind of like support Burst 3. Viper's a Burst 2 shotgun, and Leona's Burst 2 shotgun, and then you're kind of like running into like really more obscure things after that. But, I mean, really, for powerhouse water units, we have Dorothy and Winterlude Milla, and then kind of Privity and Amelia. But like there's, as far as like really like top tier damage dealers, especially in Burst 3, is like only Winterlude Milla, and she was a limited time unit. Amelia was a collaboration unit. Dorothy is a Pilgrim, and she's a Burst 1 support technically. So, we really need some strong Burst 3 water attackers, and now we're getting 2 of them. So, I don't know, let me know which one you think is actually more powerful. I think it's really interesting, like I said, to see that their kits are similar in a lot of ways. Quency and Phantom both look like they could be viable. I might force Quency anyway because her design is crazy and I already liked her character anyway. And I feel like she, in the right circumstance, might be a little stronger. But Phantom looks like she'll be a little bit easier to use, most likely. But we'll see. I would love to hear your opinions. Are you planning to pull for both of them? Are you just staying strong? Are you going to save for Anniversary? It's really hard. We just got Rouge. Resources are definitely struggling. I don't know. It's at least we got this this preview, right? We can kind of see what happens. Every now and then Shift Up gives us a little break, a little teaser. They're like, all right, you can prepare a little bit here. So that's nice. All right. I will catch you guys in the next video on the next stream.